leadership meeting. And when we think about the effectiveness of our leadership, we all would like to improve our effectiveness as leaders, wouldn't we? What is it that really would help us improve our leadership ability? Now, if we would take a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate your leadership ability? Being that a 10 would equal someone like who could I mention? Gandhi? Someone that we think of as a great missionary, Sister White. Do you think Sister White was a great leader? How about James White? I would rate them close to a 9 or 10 at least. These people are great leaders. They had an ability to lead others and to encourage others. What was the secret of their leadership? I think we can consider some of those things as we consider what we've already learned here today. I thought it was very significant that Idell quoted one of his slides, or one of his teachers, that congruency, positive regard, and empathy were important. Now, let's ask ourselves a question: what does this congruency mean? What does it mean to you? What does congruency mean? How did he define congruency? Brother Goey, how would you define congruency? That's very good, well balanced. Now, how would we explain well balanced? Well balanced is one thing, but he talked about 4 doors, didn't he? What are those 4 doors that he talked about? I think we remember. What are they? The physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. So with congruency, balance means that we have a balance in our lives in these different areas of our lives. In our physical, our mental, our emotional, and our spiritual life. In other words, there's no conflict between these things. The more closely we can come to eliminating the conflicts between how we take care of these 4 levels, the more congruency we'll have in our lives. But also, what will happen if we have this balance? Think about that. Now, we're going to come to that in a moment. But what is this positive? Computer just crashed. Don't worry about it. It'll come back. What is this positive regard? Okay, how would you define that in another way?
Well, do unto others what you would like God to do to you.
Very good. What is that called? The golden rule, right? So we're regarding others. Every time we diminish another human being, we are diminishing what? Part of humanity, are we not?
Yes.
And when we diminish part of humanity, what are we diminishing? Ourselves. So, when we think about this idea of not having positive regard for others, what are we actually doing? We're diminishing their influence, we're diminishing our influence. Notice what I just said. So, we need to have a positive regard to others, and that is another way of saying, speak evil of no man. So, as we think about having this positive regard for others, we need to cultivate this, because this is not natural for us. It's natural for us to complain, isn't it? Natural for us to complain. And all murmuring and complaints are what? They are offerings to His Satanic Majesty. All murmuring and complaint are offerings to Satan, and they diminish our own influence. What does this empathy mean? I think since Brother Idell made it clear what it was, that empathy was being able to relate to other people. Now, it's not necessary that we have gone through the same experience with another person to empathize with them. In fact, they have discovered that people who have not gone through other people's experience are actually more empathetic, at least outwardly, than people who have gone through it, because people who have gone through the experience say, well, I got through it, you can too. So, that's kind of the way that people react. Oh, I've gone through that. Like Brother Idell was saying about his experience with his sickness. Well, I can say, well, I've gone through that. I know how hard it was, yeah. So, But people who haven't gone through it can actually have more empathy. Now, how do we have more empathy with people? What is it that we need to do when we express empathy? Yes, but what about body language? I'm thinking of body language now. How do we convey by body language empathy? We listen, we look at them, we're patient with them, we ask questions. So we're empathetic. So this is important. So when we think about now this idea of empathy, there is no real excellence in all the world which can be separated from right living. So when we talk about being leaders, the most important thing that we need to do is be quality people. Excellence in everything we do. And how do we become more proficient and more excellent in what we do? We do the best we can at everything we attack, we do it. And what happens when you do your best every time? What happens when you do your very best every time? It gets better, doesn't it? So we cannot be people of good enough. We have to be people who are always on the edge of our abilities, who are always seeking to do the best that we can do, and then what happens? It gets better. If we sit in the pew and we refuse to be challenged and say, no, I'm not worthy of that, I can't do it, what are we doing? Are we helping ourselves? Are we adding value to the church? We're being satisfied with where we're at. We're not letting ourselves being challenged, and therefore we are part of the status quo of the church. Is that what we want? Is that what we want everybody else to do, what we're doing? Well, we should think of ourselves as being someone who is a leader. And a leader does what? He does what he expects other people to do. What he wants other people to do. How many people come to you and say, do you know that the leaders are supposed to be doing this and that and the other thing? How come you're not doing it? Have you ever had that experience? Somebody reads something in the Spirit of Prophecy or in the Bible and say, how come you're not doing this? What do you do with that? You have to be careful how you deal with that. That's a tough one. Because we say, yes, will you help me do it? Are you doing it? God has showed it to you that that needs to be done. You should go do it because the Lord. So, anyway, what we're thinking about now is what is the currency of leadership? And I've mentioned it several times. What is the currency of leadership? Do you have any idea of what I'm getting at? Where we're going this time? Brother Goey? What do you need to lead others? What is the one thing that's most important to lead others?
Wisdom.
You need wisdom, yes?
Love.
Love, yes?
Prayer.
Lots of prayer. We should emphasize that more. Thank you, Brother Anka. What else? What is the currency of leadership?
And
You're supposed to be a follower.
Well, if you're going to have people who are going to follow you, what do you need? What do you need more than anything else? What? What?
Spirituality.
Yes, this is all part of it.
And
All right, let me get to it here. My computer will come up. And I'd like to show you how you can increase your ability in leadership. How you can think about it in a positive way. All right. Excuse me. All right, there it is. Did you see that?
Influence.
There we go. Oh yeah, that's the next slide. All right, what is the currency of leadership? Basically, influence. Could you agree with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, all the things you mentioned
Yes.
are related to that, aren't they?
Yes.
Are you converted? Are you consistent? Do you have? Are you living your life on principles? Are you character-centered or are you personality-centered? I'll explain that in a moment. Do you really have love for other people? Are you empathetic? Are you, willing to listen to others? Are you respectful? Are you patient? And what then is the basis of influence is what? Trust. If people cannot trust you, can they follow you? So how do we build our influence? How do we increase our trust? Can you trust somebody who says one thing one time and says something else the next time? Can you trust somebody who says they're going to do something and they don't do it? So consistency is very important. So what is the most successful thing in the world? Do you know? I've told you some of these people, someone knows that. What is the most successful thing in the world? Thank you, brother. Sister White says, nothing is as successful as success. Volume something, page 27. I'm not sure which volume it is, 4 or 7. So nothing is successful as success. So when we build into another person's experience failure, when we build into their experience failure, what are we doing? We're not helping them, we're not helping the cause, and we're not helping ourselves. So if we give somebody a task that we know is really a challenge for them, and we don't help them do it, and don't help them be successful, and we allow them to be a failure, what are we doing? We are not helping them. And can they trust us anymore? Because they are a failure themselves, aren't they? I was with a friend one time in another country, and this friend had bought something very expensive, and one of the young people was carrying that for him, and he left it in a shop. He left that expensive thing in another shop when we went to another shop. And my friend looked around and says, "Where's my package?" "Oh, I left it in the shop." And it was only 5 minutes. We ran back to the shop, and there it was, sitting among the other goods, and we picked it up. We found our package. And my friend says, "I'm never going to trust him again. Give me that package." And I said to him, "Look, if you do that, you've destroyed his own confidence in him." Hasn't he? Wouldn't you do that? What you need to do is now you need to give him the package, but now you need to keep an eye on him out of the corner of your eye. You need to help him. So when we're talking about dealing with people, and do people make mistakes? To help them and to give them success, not give them failure. Not to emphasize their failure, but to help them overcome their failure. And when we do that, what are we doing with our own influence? What is happening to our own influence when we live like this?
It's getting greater.
It's getting greater. Why? Why is it getting greater?
First, trust us more.
Because you're building trust,
Yeah.
you're building relationships, and you are adding value to another person's life. You're not taking value away from him. Because if we had taken that package away from him, what would we have done? We would be diminishing the value of his life, would we not?
Yeah.
He's made a mistake. Absolutely, he's made a mistake. Should we trust him? Well, not as much as we trusted him before, but should we let him know that?
No.
We should give him a reason to be more careful, not a reason to condemn himself and be discouraged. Okay? So when we're thinking about this idea of influence, how can we encourage or increase our influence with others? That is what I would like to have us think about for a moment. Now, Influence is the currency of leadership, and how do we increase it? Well, may I suggest that there are two circles I want to get up here in our presentation. The mouse is one of the most wonderful things since the invention of sliced bread, but sometimes it's hard to find. There it is. So, here's what I would like to emphasize at this point. What is the difference between a manipulator and a leader? Here's the difference. A manipulator gets people to do things for his benefit. A leader encourages people to do things for their benefit. Amen? Are we manipulators or are we leaders? So what are we seeking to do? As we add value to the lives of other people, we are helping our own influence. We are rising also on the level of leadership. If we cannot add value to the lives of others, do you think they are going to follow us?
No.
If we cannot add value to another person's life, do you think they're going to come and worship with us? What do you think? If the religion that we believe does not add value to another person's life, do you think they're going to come to Christ? Come to the truth that we know today. Are they going to come just because of the intellectual? Because it is the truth? Some will, but not many. Some will see it, and they will do it, but not usually. So we need to think about how we're presenting the truth in a way that adds value to other people's life. I like to picture it this way. How can we ask people to move out of their hovel or their house into a new house? How can we ask them to do that? Do we tear down their house first, or do we build the new house first? We have to build the new house first, don't we? We can't ask them to move out of where they are into a new house until the new house is built. And so when we are presenting the truth to people, they have a worldview. They have an idea of how the world and God is supposed to work. And unless we can create a correct view, a better view, they're not going to leave their view for the new view. They're not going to leave their old house for the new house. So we have to bring the truth in a way and use our influence in a way that shows people that they have a reason to leave their old view, their old house, for the new view and the new house. And how do you do that? You need to be men of influence. They have to trust you. What are some of the other elements of What are some of the other elements of trust and influence? I think I need to give up on this thing. What are some of the other elements? What about competence? Competence. What is involved in competence?
Preparation.
Preparation. What else is involved in competence? Or in competence? It's another P in my mind. How about planning? We need to have planning, don't we? We need to be people of order. We need to be people of planning. We need to be people of preparation. And we also need to be people of character. We need to be people who are spiritual, who see things in a spiritual way, who are converted. I think the most important element is that we're converted anew, that we die daily, that we put other people first. But now, in that context, if you want people to respect you and have a higher value of your services, you have to put a high value on your own services. And by that I mean not in a stuck-up kind of way. That means you need to have order in your life. That when people are asking you to be involved in their lives because they suddenly have a car that broke down, or they can't pay their mortgage, or they need someone to come and take them to the store, or they're moving, or they need to have something that's broken or whatever that you need to fix, what do you do? How do you deal with that? Do you have that happen? The people in the church are always calling you for this and that and the other thing? You have a plan. You know you have to go here. You're using your time the maximum you know how to use it, and somebody comes and says, Brother Simon, I have a problem. Can you come and help me? What do you do when that happens? What do you do when that happens? You need to be careful how you deal with that. If it's a life and death situation, you need to do something. You need to leave everything you have to do it. But if it's not life and death, you need to say no. You need to say, I have time next Tuesday at 2 o'clock. If your problem isn't solved by then, I have some time. Leader must learn to say no if he wants people to respect him. If he is their servant, then he is their servant, all right, but he needs to be teaching them how to order and manage their own lives, right? So then, as we deal with other people, we are telling them that our time is valuable, that we have order in our lives, that we have a definite plan, that we're under the direction of God in what we're doing, and unless it's a life and death matter, we're going to have to schedule our time together with you, because my life is planned. I have a planned life. And therefore, you have to help people to understand if they want to be successful, they also need to have a planned life. Now, I'd like to end with 2 stories. I have just 5 minutes. When I was in this church for about 10 years, I've been going through a very difficult time the first 10 years of my experience. And there were reasons for that. I had maturity issues. I had other issues that were involved. And one day I sat on the bench in my couch at home, and I said, Lord, I've been fighting this situation, this particular situation, for 5 years. Isn't it about time you did something about it? I've been waiting for 5 years for this situation to be resolved. I've done everything I could. I've tried to preach it away. I've tried to work it away. I've tried to do everything I could in my own strength to do it, and the Lord said, that's your problem. I said, are you going to do anything about it? He said, no. Not until you learn what you need to learn. I said, well, what do I need to learn? And when I said that, when I said, Lord, what do I need to learn? Tell me. He said, you need to live the golden rule. You need to do to others as you would expect them to do to you. You need to love them and forgive them and leave them with me. You are not their God. I am. In 2 weeks, the whole situation turned upside down. 5 years. I waited and worked and fought, and nothing happened. But when I gave it to God, and I gave myself to God, in 2 weeks, the situation was solved. And that's how God works. The other experience I want to tell you is one night I came home with Christian Nelson. We had been on a missionary trip to Oregon. It had been a long and arduous trip. We'd come back from 7 hours of driving. It was 11:30 at night. It was dark where I was living. There was a street light down the street a little bit. And Christian lived another 45 minutes away from me, and I was going to have to take him home and come back. And I said, Christian, you just take my car and go. I'm too tired. So he took my car and he left, and I was there in the front of my house in the dark having to go to the bathroom after 6 hours in the car. So I went in the house, and the bathroom was busy. I couldn't go there. And we had another bathroom, but that was in the back of the house, and my wife and another sister were living in that part of the house. Were staying there. So I had no bathroom, and I was going to have to sleep on the couch that night because the visitor was also in the front bedroom, and I had to go to the bathroom in the worst way. So I went outside, and we had a little area beside the house that was covered with vines, and I went in there and relieved myself. Forgive me for telling this story, but it's very embarrassing to me. As I turned around and came out of that little area beside the house, I ran smack dab into a lady who was going to follow me into that grove of vines. And I thought, wow, what is this? She was a black lady dressed in black. And she started telling me a story about her needs, that she had missed her appointment for the bus or the train to get back to her apartment and everything, and she wanted me to give her some money so she could take a cab or something and get home. And I thought for a moment, I've got $5 in my pocket, and she wants 10. And I said to her, so let me get this straight. You made a mistake, and you want me to pay for it. Is that right? She thought for a moment. She said, yes. And then I said, is that maturity or immaturity? She looked down the street at the far street light, and she said, immaturity. Very good. I said, look, I just got home. I don't have a car. I'd take you if I had one. I don't have a bed. I can't give you a bed. I don't even have one myself. I have to sleep on the couch tonight. But I tell you what, I'm going to give you my spending money. This is my spending money for the month. That's all I have. I have no more. Thank you. Good night. So I walk in the house, and he says, what's your name? I said, Mended Owl. She said, what? I said, good night. 2 weeks later, guess what? This lady shows up again. She gives me another story. I stand out on my front yard, and I ask her a question. I said, what is harder than learning from your mistakes? I don't know. I said, not learning from your mistakes. I said, again, you've come back to me. It's the next month, and I still have $10 left of my spending money. I'll give it to you, but that's all I have. I'm not going to help you any further. You're a grown lady, and you need to learn from your mistakes. So I give her the $10, and she leaves. By the way, giving people money is the wrong thing to do. You will never help them spiritually when you give them money, not usually. But 3 weeks later, she knocks on my door again. But this time, she had a bicycle, she had a rake, and she says, I'm working. I'm cleaning yards. I'm helping myself. And I want to clean your yard too. So sometimes we can help people by being tough with them, but being soft at the same time. Teaching them that the hardest thing to learn from is our mistakes, but not condemning them for it, but helping them through those things. Giving them a value in their lives. Increasing the value of their lives by giving them a higher vision of themselves. By not manipulating them, but by leading them to use their influence to make their lives better little by little by little. So, what is the currency of our leadership? It's our influence, based on trust and competence that grows more and more every day. That we do the best we can with what we have. And of course, we leave the results with God. May God help us that we can know how to increase our influence, because every time you spend your time on something that is not your business, You're taking time from something that is your business, and you're diminishing your influence. May the Lord help us that we might increase in influence, that we might grow in our ability to lead others to Jesus Christ, is my prayer. Amen. Thank you for your time.
The next presentation is related with the health topic, but it will involve some practical activities. And I like to invite you now that we may close this presentation, this moment, and after that I'd like to give the time Brother Adin that he will introduce the activity, and we will do some physical tests and some other activities related with this health fair. Let's open our hymnal and sing together now a song, and we will close with a word of prayer. 132 we are going to sing now. Not that I, but Christ. Let's sing the first and the last stanzas of this song. 132. To invite you to kneel down at this moment, and we will be led by prayer. Brother, if you can lead us in prayer, please.
Lord Heavenly Father, we thank you for this privilege to be here. I thank you for all the lessons that we have gone through. So I would like to ask you that these lessons may remain mapped in our minds, that we can put in practice everything we have learned. We thank you that we have been called with such a high calling that we can call people to Jesus. And we need you in this. We need the Holy Spirit. We need the humbleness that comes from you, and we need the abilities that only you can do to each one of us. We thank you for our brothers and sisters that have come here in this place. And also I ask you to bless those who are on the way. Help them to come safely, and that
Amen.
we may go from here more spiritual and more prepared for the task and duty that you have given us. Lord, bless us and help us ahead that we may praise your holy name, and in everything what we do, you may be glorified. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. I'd like to invite Brother Adin to introduce us in the next activity. It is, as is mentioned here in the program, is a health fair.